Moral in the Caster here with a BFA video. It's been a while. I used to be OP Gaming, but I'm trying to start a new channel, but bouncing off what I have already created in the past 5-6 years of YouTubing. It's been a couple of years since I've been on YouTube, so it's kind of an introductory video, and I might as well start it off with a review of BFA, World of Warcraft. This also includes 8.3. I'm gonna go through a couple of positives and negatives of the entire game, which the stuff that I do every day. I'm not a hardcore gamer or anything, but figured I'd give you guys my 2 cents, and hope you guys enjoy. My first point I'm gonna start off with, as you can see, is I've been doing a lot of dungeons and raids and stuff, and so I'm in Mythic 5 right now, or level 2 actually. I'm sorry, level 2, and one thing that Blizzard has mastered over the years of World of Warcraft is making very good instances, boss interaction, and types of gameplay. This ranges anywhere from Old Deer all the way to Nyalotha. I haven't played too much of Nyalotha Raid. I've only done Raid Finder Wing 1. Just haven't had. I'm kind of in between guilds right now, so I don't have a lot of gameplay of the raid. But based off just Raid Finder Wing 1 and doing the other raids, Blizzard hasn't disappointed in their boss creation and or setup. So you really can't knock them on that. There's a lot of stuff that Blizzard does that you can, and rating is or boss setup is not one of them. Like for example, I'm just as you see in the B-roll, I'm in what the hell's it called? Shrine of the Storm, and it's not. I've been playing Classic a bit too, and that was literally tank and spank with a couple mechanics. This one requires a lot of player interaction, and that's where they've almost made the bosses. It's a positive and a negative, and what they have done is they made the bosses of both instances and raids very intricate, where if one person fails, you can easily wipe the group. Where back in Burning Crusade or Classic, you can lose half the raid and still finish it. I don't even remember doing the dance in Naxxramas and spending 35 minutes attacking one boss with just a healer and a blood tank. So, which the fights weren't as in depth and they were easier, and maybe they're. I don't know if they were more enjoyable because there was nostalgia, and so that kind of clouds people's judgments on actual gameplay mechanics of bosses. But bosses now are a lot more intricate, and like I said earlier, that's a blessing and a curse. As you can see, like on this boss, for example, there's like 3 phases. Each phase, the damage has to focus something, the tank has to move, so on and so forth, and that is very common in retail WoW these days, and I would like to see it continue. I mean, I don't want to discourage them. I wish they would make the bosses just a little bit not less involved, but less dependent on everyday players, where one person screw up shouldn't wipe the raid. And I kind of understand, back in Classic, people still, or not Classic actually, because Classic is a current game. In Vanilla WoW, what a lot of people were still on dial-up, had shit internet. Actually, I don't even know if they're on dial, but they had shit internet, so there was a lot more lag. So there had to be a lot more tolerances in the game. At least that's what I've kind of realized. And nowadays, everyone has high-speed internet, and the lag is very rarely an excuse anymore. So they're able to make bosses with a lot more mechanics. And as gaming development comes further and further, I mean, it's not 2004 anymore; it's 2020. The game's been out for 15 years or so. So there's a lot of development, and the bosses have gotten, like I keep mentioning, kind of going back to it. And it's the theme of what we're trying to talk about is the layout of bosses and mobs, and all in all, has been pretty well actually listened to and done. I think a lot of people I've read online where a lot of people are upset is the way they're setting up their trash, and actually would be really cool something to see in the future, either in Shadowlands or going forward with World of Warcraft is having your ads. All the different ads have aspects of the boss you're about to kill. So then you can have so it makes the mobs have a little bit more fidelity inside of the instance. Because right now, mobs are essentially a percent to kill the bosses, get the timer done. So there's not much continuity. The ads just feel placed there, and it'd be kind of cool to kind of see ads kind of test your skill on the boss instead of just being mindless creatures. And that would be, I think, a really good thing to see kind of going forward, is see how can they take what they know about bosses and move it over to ads. Because right now, like I said, ads are just mindless. They're just an obstacle to the fight, and they always have been, even since vanilla. And it'd be if we can just get a little bit more not interaction, but like worth out of them instead of just waste time filler. So that would I like to see kind of going forward. But going that we touched upon rating and battle instances and stuff, and BFA has pretty much mastered the bosses. But one thing that they've added, and I think it's there's two big aspects of this game that I think are negative, that they keep releasing out, is the amount of daily quests. And this game does feel a little chorish. Because in 8.2 they added Mechagon and Najatar, which I'll talk about right now. As you can see, I have like in Mechagon, for example, they have probably about 6 or 7 pick-upable dailies, kind of like back in the day with Wrath of the Lich King or Burning Crusade. Even Cataclysm, I would say, but just pick-upable quests, like the blue question mark as opposed to world quests. I guess this all actually went all the way to Legion. With the invention of world quests, the kind of the blue question marks have kind of faded. But they brought them back in Mechagon, and Mechagon itself is really cool. It's very unique. You're picking up essentially blueprints and creating new features and new characters, and or mounts and stuff. And I think they hit the nail on the head because it's a different type of gameplay than your standard gear grind. But it is a block to the allied races, which we'll get to later. And then they added Najatar. Najatar is more gear focused. Like this one also has about 10 or 15 dailies, because you have your ally daily, which gives you 3 additional quests, and you have to level them up. And that also provides stuff for your Azure power, which we'll get to later. Najatar is actually, I hated Najatar as a zone. I think the zone design was terrible, because you don't have Flying Mount yet, because you have to get the Pathfinder, which was mind-numbing. And where Mechagon had, I think, a little bit better zone layout, it was a little bit easier to traverse. Najatar, I thought, was terrible. What they did with Benthic gear, which was a new addition with Najatar, was kind of cool, where the dailies went to getting tokens to upgrade gear that you found up to raid status or even higher. But overall, it's just another chore you had out through the day. And with with BFA, there's a lot of chores you have to do. Dailies, world quest, then you have your weeklies. Like you see, then you have your weekly mythics, and as you see, I'm just flying around, doing my dailies. And if you want to like unlock allied races, you have to do. So right here is your allied races. What you have to do is you have to fly around and do more dailies and more dailies, and it just gets old. I'm gonna kind of go through. I'm gonna put a pause on doing dailies real quick and just kind of go over allied races just real quick. I'm gonna do an in-depth video later upon different character creation. There's a little bit editing error right now. So there is 10 allied races. They finally added all the allied races with 8.3. They added the Mechanome and the Volpera. I think the Mechanomes look terrible. They look like they're wearing a diaper. The Volpera are kind of cool. They're like the Horde's gnomes. They do have a little hate because they look like furries. Not a big deal. But they are they are all unlocked by grinding and grinding and grinding. They do have some cool effects. I've unlocked Dark Iron Dwarves, Lightforge, and the Void Elves on the Alliance, and Nightborn and High Mountain Torn on the Horde. I still have to unlock Coltiran and Mecha Gnomes, but I am working on that right now. Because you know what to do? Because I'm probably going to have to do a little bit more dailies because my rep is low and I have to do my contract and get my dailies done. And that just kind of brings me back to chores and BFA. I would like to actually somebody down and below add a comment for everything that has a daily and or some sort of repeatable, because even with the new addition with these heroic visions and these nightmares in 8.3 is 2 more zones of about 5 to 6 dailies plus a weekly event, and it is very tiresome. But that does kind of lead into, because you have to do them because you get gear from it. And for example, like I finished my weekly here. As you see, I'm gonna go probably collect my chest, and I think people are gonna get sick of the dailies just as much as me talking about them, because that is literally the core of BFA. You have your raids. Every time you log in, you're not. A lot of people don't enjoy the game, but they feel obligated to play the game to complete things. You have. Let's just lay them off as much as we can. We have your world quest. You have your Najatar dailies. You have your Mechagon dailies. You have your weekly. You have your weekly mythic. Your weekly raid. That's 5. Then we have the island expeditions. We have the weekly island expedition quest. We have the weekly turtle guy. Then we have with the start of I don't know if I mentioned PvP daily, so we'll add that in there. I think that's 8. Then we have the new Nyalotha stuff, or 8.3 stuff. So then we have Old Doom, I think it's the zone's called, dailies, and then you have Panda Land, Veil of Eternal Blossom dailies. So right there, that's 10 dailies. And then there's also the weeklies with those 2 zones as well. So that's 12 right off the bat. And almost all of them are necessary, even as the current game. I kind of thought as I played the game in 8.3 and got the newer gear that the older dailies, like they did in Legion, were kind of useless except for rep. Here they're not, and they actually drop current gear, or right now I think it's 445. So, at least with my character you see right here in the frame, you do have to do the dailies to make sure your gear's on top. So it's a grind, and that's a very big fault. And I really hope they don't do that again in Shadowlands. Even along with like gearing, and I'll touch upon this later. But like, for example, I got these boots from my weekly chest, and I had a corruption, and I'll get to corruption values later. Actually, we might as well touch upon it right now. They have the new Nyalotha thing, and which is the horrific visions. Horrific visions. You each alt you want to do. I'm just give you a quick brief overview and how also give you what I think about them. Quick brief overview before I get into what I was talking about right before this clip was it's about a 3 to 5 hour daily, depending on your computer and how much time you want to focus on it. It's about a 3 to 5 hour introductory quest line per character, and once you unlock one character, it doesn't transfer over into your alt. So every alt you want to do, you have to do this 3 to 5 hour introductory quest. But once you get there, you get horrific visions. What is the main point? Aside from the raid, this is like the biggest thing you do in 8.3, and this is called the horrific vision, and it's actually a very cool idea. It's a zone that gets progressively harder as the further and further you get in. I've only made it 2 tiers in my horrific visions. My cape's only level 6 on this character and level 7 on my my tank character. And what's cool is this cape that you essentially do this for gear, but the main purpose of this is to unlock stuff to get your cape more powerful. And the more powerful your cape is, the more resistance to corruption you have. And that kind of brings me back to that chest you saw. What I was doing in the last clip when I got from my mythic was a pair of boots that had corruption on it. Corruption is a mechanic to your gear that has a random buff, but to have that buff, you must also pay your corruption level. So the more corruption you have, the more difficult it is to play the game. For example, especially tanking, I was doing a level 5 mythic, and I had like almost 80 corruption on my tank, and so there's mechanics where you have to stay still, and I had to run away because I had a stupid vision thing chasing me. So it's kind of a hurdle. So you have to balance corruption level with buffs, because you can go completely mad but have very powerful gear and effects to your gear. So, but it kind of adds kind of like another layer of RNG, because you may get a piece of gear with a different corruption level, and it's like you really want to use that piece of gear, but you can't even use it. There's times where I had to actually use an item of lesser value or purge an item of that buff because of the corruption level. So I hope this is just an little experiment with this patch, and doesn't go forward with Shadowlands and maybe like an anima level or something. I hope they don't do that, because I think that takes away from gearing effectively. I think that would be a very big bummer if here on out they keep adding limitations to using gear, because that makes you disincentivized to use gear. And we can touch upon that in another video. I don't want to go too in depth on that, just in a review of BFA so far. But with heroic visions, I have been overall pleased with the heroic visions. They've been challenging, but not they haven't been too hard, but they've been challenging enough to continue having fun and look for more corruption resistance, and do my best to progress further and testing my limits. Maybe going and actually, because each place, there's I think like 6 places in each city, which alternates between Orgrimmar and Stormwind every day, and each zone gets locked out. So I think it's kind of cool that every zone you go into is a different effect and an issue, like a different thing, and you're able to kind of push yourself. Like, oh, I only have 2 more recoveries. I'm gonna try and see how far I can go in another zone. So you've already done, you cleared to the main boss. You do 1 zone, and then you try and do a 3rd zone or a 4th zone or a 5th zone. You can try and go as far as you want, but you'll eventually end up dying unless you kill the boss. So it is fun to kind of test your limits, and I think Blizzard overall actually hit something unique here, and I'd like to see different variations and build upon this as something positive for Blizzard, and not something. I don't want them to take the worst of this, like the corruption gear. I don't want them to take the best of this, like the horrific visions. There's pros and cons to 8.3, and I'll do a review of 8.3 all together separately. Like I said, this is more of a BFA overall 8.0 to launch to where we are now today with 8.3. And I think a lot of people are a little bit, not disappointed, but I guess a little bit disappointed that, I think everyone expected BFA to be just more of a Horde alliance tension. And lore-wise, this expansion has seemed very just all over the place. You first start off with going into like a Titan chamber, and then that's your first raid. That's your main story. You have your main quest, which is establishing a foothold on the island of Kultiran, or whatever the hell it's called. And then you have a side. I feel like the war campaign was more of a side mission than kind of the main focus, which the title made it seem like the main focus, but what you actually played with it was a little bit more of an afterthought. And then with the additions of these like assaults with like on Dark Shore and Arathi Basin, or Arathi Basin, Arathi Highlands, sorry. It just felt like they ran out of time developing it. Because when the game first launched, they only had 1, and then they slowly introduced 2, which was Dark Shore, and then they slowly added heroic mode, And I feel like they definitely missed an opportunity to make the focus. Like, imagine if they made like those assaults similar to the visions, where you can lose. Like, you can literally go into one of those assault events and do nothing and get your rewards and get your badges to get your mounts or whatever. And I think the storyline just again was just way all over the place with this expansion, and I just don't this. A lot of people are trying to compare this to WoD, and some people say this is worse than WoD, and I don't think so. I think WoD was an overall better storyline. Um, Hold on, an overall better storyline, but they cut a lot of content out. Where in BFA, it felt like it was in how do I put this? BFA kind of was in between Legion and WoD. WoD had some strengths and a lot of weaknesses. Legion had some weaknesses and a lot of strengths, and I feel like BFA was kind of caught in between. It took a lot of the weaknesses of BFA or of WoD and a lot of the strengths of Legion and put them together, and that's what we kind of got. I think BFA could have had had a rough start, and I felt like there was glimpses of hope to have a very good expansion. But I think it wasn't bad, but I feel like it kind of ran out of steam. Because like we were trying to Sylvanas somehow gets all this power, but where does she get the power? We don't. There's no storyline on Sylvanas. She's working in the backgrounds with the whole what the hell is her name? Ashara expansion or the patch was there's like a hidden mess or a hidden storyline with Sylvanas in that, but I don't think it didn't play on it enough. And Sylvanas made a pact with Ashara to get Enzoth released and stuff, and I just don't think it was clearly explained, and I just feel like the story was muddled with a lot of side stories. The BFA should have been battle between the Horde and the Alliance. That's what it was pitched at, and that's what it was sold as. And what we got is a kind of a rocky launch, a very muddled story with Ashara, and then we got rush content for 8 with Enzoth, which everyone's been waiting for years. And kind of what they did with the Emerald Dream, instead of just making it because he's an entire expansion, they truncated it into a patch, and then ruined the story. I think the 8.3 storyline was atrocious. I think they've ruined Enzoth and the Black Empire, and I think they could have just done a lot better with that. And I don't want to keep rambling about the story. Overall, I want to say I'd give BFA a final verdict of this. I've enjoyed it. I've actually played this more than any other expansion, I think, other than Wrath of the Lich King and BC. Classic or vanilla, everyone played a lot. Yeah, who didn't, right? I played pretty steady until about Cataclysm, and then kind of petered off and just came on, played a little bit, and just off and on again between Panda Land and now. And I've actually played, I think, I played BFA a lot more than Legion and WoD. I've actually enjoyed the game. I've never felt like I've ran out of stuff to do. And that kind of goes back to the amount of dailies that you have to do and the chores. But at the same time, I have enjoyed the game, and I've actually played it, like I said, longer than most of the other ones. So because this game has actually kept me interested, and a lot of people might say, "Oh, how have you been interested in this?" I don't know, but I've been interested. So I'm gonna be a little fair on it. I think this is a decent expansion pack. There's a lot of stuff I don't want to go through, like. I think they failed at Azerite gear. I think the whole Azerite trait stuff was a failure, at least at the start, because some gear didn't have the slots you need and RNG, and I wasn't a hardcore raider, so I don't think it affected me as much as other people. But for people who are trying to get what's the term, metrics, or hit the creme de creme stats, you need specific gears that are best in slot with the essentially Titan forging and all the RNG stuff. And I think that was what kind of deterred people most about this. and I have to factor that into the end of in the review, even though I don't think it affected me as much because I wasn't hardcore in this. I logged on and I'm trying to do more. I think this expansion for me has been more of a collectibles plus decent gear plus mythics and LFR and basic rating. I wasn't trying to set the limits, and so because of that, I think BFA is definitely like a 6 out of 10 or so. I think I think it was a decent expansion. I think they made some major missteps and they recovered from about half of them. I hope they learn from this and take the best of this, best of Legion, the best of WoD, and the best of everything, and listen and look at the success of Classic and move that into BFA into Shadowlands. And I think Blizzard can do something good with Shadowlands. Would and if I was unsubscribed to this, and after watching this, I would recommend coming back for at least I wouldn't do the 6 month subscription, but I would definitely come back for maybe there's definitely a couple months worth of content of 3 to 5 hours a day playing. There's definitely enough content to keep you busy for at least a few months if you're in between games or waiting for a new release or something. Definitely a good game. I can't hate on it too much. I've enjoyed it. There's other than its big faults. Again, I'd probably give it maybe 6.5 out of 10. Hopefully, there's stuff they can improve on. I hope you enjoyed my first video after coming back for a while. Hopefully, the audio's okay. I got all new software. I'm trying new things. If you do enjoy this video, please comment, rate, and subscribe. If you videos will be coming every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Just a varying content about. I'm going to be focusing on World of Warcraft. If I missed anything in this review, or you think I fell flat or didn't hit upon, please drop a comment and say, hey, you forgot this, or what about that? What do you think about this? And maybe I'll make another review video and do a little bit more research. This was more off a cuff, just threw some B-roll film in and kind of just talked. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video, and and subscribe and hit that notification bell and see more. And I'm also on Twitch, so go ahead and type in Smorlin, my channel name, just the Smorlin part, into Twitch, and follow me on Twitch, and we'll have a good time. I appreciate you watching, and have a good night or day or whatever time you're watching this at.